Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host, Logan Landers. And joining me today on the show to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ohio State Buckeyes is one of the top defensive-minded coaches, not just in the metro Atlanta area, not just high school sports, but I'm talking about the entire state of Georgia, the one, the only, Kevin the Bull Jones. How's it going, Kevin?
Logan, how we doing? It's another great afternoon for football. You see what I've got on? I'm still wearing it. Mother-in-law hooked me up, and I just had to put it on. It just felt so good. I even got the matching shirt today. I didn't even know they matched them. My wife told me it did, but it's just wonderful to be able to talk some football with you, and I'm glad to see you, big guy. Glad to see you.
Always pleasure to have you on the show, man. I see you were rocking the signature Kevin Jones Alabama face mask you've been doing on the show for a couple of weeks now, so glad to have it, especially in the big game coming up. I know we're about to get into that real soon, man. I know you're happy for it, so I know you're going to be wearing that one next week. I know during the game, get a little bit of pregame tradition.
Yeah, absolutely, and just have some fun with it because it's what I said was going to happen. The cream rises to the top. And it's going to be a fascinating event for football next Monday, and everybody should be ready to lock down. And we're in the house anyway. Everybody's at home. You might as well pop the tube on and get ready to watch a fantastic show on both teams. But yes, I am ecstatic that exactly what I said was going to happen came to fruition. And I also said at the beginning of the season that the teams with the most experienced quarterbacks and sensational quarterbacks would be the reason why some of these teams make it to the top four. And that's exactly what happened with the four programs that we saw that played in the semifinals. And likewise, the fantastic effort by Justin Fields last week and his semifinal game. So now we have two big guys going at it.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Hey, and speaking of fantastic shows, I just want to say shout out to everyone watching the show live right now on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Also, be sure to check us out on our Instagram for some of the short clips of each episode. And also, be sure to look up 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio on either Spotify, Apple, or wherever you like to listen to your audio experience and listen to some podcasts. We'll be uploading this as well as all the other videos we've done live in just a couple of hours once I get a little bit of dinner in me, get some energy back, and they'll be uploaded up on there in a little bit. So, Coach Jones, let's talk about this game, man. This is the game going around the whole college football world, the whole sports world. So, I want your thoughts on this, man. So, give your expert analysis on this. And I know this is your team here with Alabama. That's the Crimson Tide. But I just want you to just take a quick one second here. Do you hear? It's getting a little bit closer. It's that Crimson Tide coming from Sweet Home Alabama, baby. It's your team. They're coming into this game red hot, man. I know you're ready for them to ball out and to do the Alabama tradition of doing great in the playoffs. So my first question to you, Coach Jones, is what can Alabama and more specifically Nick Saban do to ensure that another national title on Monday comes back to the Crimson Tide? What can they do?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Logan, because this is going to be a true – see, all these games were set up for Crimson Tide this season, 10 SEC games, which is no walk on the beach. And facing all of the fantastic offenses that we faced in Florida and Ole Miss and having those knockdown dragouts and, some situations where Coach Saban wasn't there at the game and then some coaches missing because of COVID. All those things bring together the fruition of what's going to happen on the 11th and starting around this time or a little before then in that championship game. This is one of the greatest combinations of physically tough teams with awesome athletes, with great coaching, with great players on both sides of the ball for both teams. You're talking about 931 wins for Ohio State University. Yeah, I did my homework, folks. I know what time it is. Come on. Bull Jones knows what time it is. 928 wins for Crimson Tide, 8 national championships for Ohio State, 17. We got to count them on 1, 2, 3, on 4 hands, 17. 17 national championships. And it is going to be a gala spectacle of a well-coached game, but one of the most physical games of the year. I'll say that right now for Coach Saban and the crew, facing one of the best defensives that when it's all said and done, here's what I will tell you that happened, Logan. We have to get ready for the great athleticism of the Buckeyes and that defensive front. They're impressive. They run well. They get that great lean coming off the edge. You know, they do that well. They have fantastic linebackers with Browning and Borland in there. Borland can and Werner, Pete Werner, who can cover guys coming out the backfield. It's going to be a great chess match. So here's what we have: the focus that Coach Saban has talked about from day one to do your job to the best of their ability. You know, one of the fascinating parts of watching last week's game was watching Devontae Smith score all those touchdowns. But if you remember one of the plays where one of the other receivers caught a pass and Devontae Smith was leading him, telling him, come on, meaning I'm blocking downfield for you. Those are those parts to the game that really make Bama stand out, because you got the top athletes in the world in college football saying, I'm going to all play for one goal, for us to be better on this play as well as the next play. So when you have that, it's going to be a great chess match. Coach Saban has to, there's no, Bama never worries about, the press clippings and what's happening. That none of that ever matters. There's a complete focus, and it's a common denominator that you hear from Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Patrick Surtain. All of them say the same thing about that focus, about the process of success. Those are common denominators. Any Bama fan knows when Coach Saban opens his mouth, that's what's going to come out. The attention to detail, respecting your opponent, but finding a way to be the best you can be. So there's no fanfare. That's nothing that's going to make Bama get up higher for this game than the past couple of games. On the upside, I think that Ohio State had something to prove against Clemson. There was just a little snicker and smile on that face of Coach Sweeney, Dabo Sweeney, and that whole deal about, number 11 ranked. And it was fuel. And when it's all said and done, Justin Fields got tired of people talking about how he's the number 3 quarterback coming out in the draft instead of the number 1 or 2. He wanted to prove, because he threw that interception in the semifinal game last year that enabled Clemson to win, and they were on a drive to try to win the game, and they lost that game. That interception was the end of their last offensive play for Ohio State. So there was some reckoning that was going to happen. So what am I saying with that, Logan? I'm saying that Ohio State might have played their best game, because how do you get up emotionally as a head coach to get my kids up for a second game, one of them being you only played 5 games the whole season. Okay, so you played 5 games, but in your mind, you were so mad at what happened last year that when you got a chance, if you ever got the chance, and the football gods let you into the Final Four, which is, what happened. Because even I was one that didn't believe they should have been there, but they proved me wrong. And I'll admit that right now in front of everybody. I'll admit it. They proved me wrong. Justin Fields, Coach Brian Day, they proved me wrong. They deserved to be there, and they punished Clemson. They had that chip on their shoulder. And now, how do you get back up for this game? I don't know. I don't know if those kids play the same way when they play Crimson Tide, because on both sides of the ball, it's coming all day, all night.
Hey, I mean, you brought up a good point a minute ago about Justin Fields and how he was able to absolutely, kind of silence some of the haters out there that were saying, this guy, he is pretty good, but he's not the number 1 quarterback. He's not even the number 2 quarterback going into this draft coming up. But I think he proved, and he kind of solidified his draft stock. I think as number 2 quarterback, I still think Trevor has the slight edge on him. But those two are definitely neck and neck in terms of just how talented they are in their ability at the quarterback position. So my question to you next is, we all know you're defensive minded. You know the defensive schemes more than anyone else on this entire show. So are you a little bit worried about how Justin Fields, especially how he performed against Clemson this past week, are you worried that he's going to be able to pick apart that Alabama defense a little bit?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that because I've been sitting here watching. I have all the games that Bama played. I have all the games that Clemson played. Excuse me, that Ohio State played. And I'm gonna tell you what's going to happen. I'm gonna tell you what our concerns are. So, Bama fans, please listen clearly. Here are our concerns for us. We've always had problems with athletic quarterbacks. Okay, and it's really a lot of times because of the scheme we play, a lot of the man coverage we play, which eventually has our backs turned to the quarterbacks and they're able to be successful getting downfield, and they'll take that back instead of have him in the block, they'll put him in. They put him in a route. So now we have five guys out in the route, and now we have only one person that can possibly watch the quarterback. And a lot of times, those athletic quarterbacks are giving us problems. So that's a concern. Okay. And the other concern is the deep ball. Okay. The Wilson kid and Olive kid did a sensational job of deep catches, getting open deep. And here's what I saw happen in the game that it is a concern. Ohio State was able to get past those secondary defenders who we always thought Clemson was suspect in the secondary. And Coach Brian Day did a fascinating job, along with offensive coordinator Kerry Coombs, being able to attack those weaknesses. And subsequently, that's what you saw what happened. So here's what's going to happen. Okay. In our ability and our defensive front and being able to bring full and pressure all the time, we'll still be in our odd man front. But we'll have to play some games with that star position, because here's what Justin Fields is doing pretty well now. And the amazing part about it, Logan, is he's always been known as a quarterback that stares his receivers down. He throws interceptions, makes some decisions that he shouldn't make. And subsequently, he'll take off scrambling when there's a decision that he doesn't feel comfortable with. So what does that mean? The progression of reading high to low, the deep routes to the intermediate to the check down. Justin Fields has never been a check down quarterback. He didn't like throwing the ball check downs to the backs, coming out in the swing route and delay routes. But guess what? When he got hit in the game and almost had his back torn off of him on a terrible hit by Skalski from a linebacker from Clemson, Justin showed his true grit, his toughness, as well as his ability to adapt to change in a sudden atmosphere where things are going totally different. He had to improvise. So guess what he did? He couldn't run anymore because his back was killing him. So he started checking the ball down. Well, that was the whole knock on him in the beginning of why he's not the number one quarterback and Trevor Lawrence is. So Justin did check that ball down to Sermons, and now we got some things to worry about. Okay, so now we're going to have to disguise some of our coverages, Logan, and we're going to have to be able to play some 3D, cover three deep coverages, and play some man underneath. But we're going to have to leave one guy to spy, whether it's Dylan Moses or Harris, whoever it's going to be. Somebody has to spy Justin Fields. Do I think he wants to run next Monday? Depends on how healthy he is. But the thing about it, Justin has figured out he can check the ball down to that monster. The Buckeyes have their own version of a Najee Harris. Trey Sermons from Sprayberry High School down here in the Metro Atlanta area, Cobb County's favorite son, and he looks like he can't jump as high as Najee to hurdle people. He had to learn how. You don't have those ups. You only get those when you come to Bama and Tuscaloosa. But what I'm saying is, if Justin checks that ball down, then we're going to have some situations we're going to have to deal with, because now Justin will throw to the tight end. And they had a lot of success against Clemson getting those intermediate throws. So long story short, Justin Fields has learned how to morph into improvising, and we have to defensively not bring a blitz, because we love to blitz at times. But our four down linemen, our four dudes, the Punisher, Will Anderson, coming on one side, Allen on the other side, okay, Barmore inside, okay, Dale on the inside. Those four guys, we have to contain Justin. We have to have a spy, and we have to lock our star guy, Malachi Moore, on that tight end. And we got to play some games. I know Malachi's been beat up, didn't play a lot against Notre Dame, and we had Helms out there a lot. But we got to play some games. but we got to worry about the deep throw because Justin will throw it. He's extremely accurate, and that's what makes him a great player. So I think that we're going to match it up pretty well. Pete Golden is going to do a great job of going in and out of those things, man under, some combo coverages, cover six, and things like that. But I don't want to blitz Justin Fields. So I'm hoping we don't. We're good enough with those four guys that we can pressure him. And I mean, Barmore and Will Anderson are tied for the league for the team lead in sacks for Crimson Tide. So I think we got some guys to keep him in the pocket. And I don't think Justin wants to run too much because he is hurting. I don't care how many shots he gets. The worst part about that shot, Logan, I can tell you, is how he felt the next morning. Shot ball. I mean, that's just bad. That's a bad feeling. So he's probably, he's 6'4", 6'3". He's probably feeling like he's 5'8", 5'9" now. But the whole throwing motion, the rehab, the soreness, he doesn't want to run because if he runs, it's going to be tough for him. But either way, our defense is going to have to mix it up. We got to stay deep and let him check it down to Sermons, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about that hit on Justin, and man, he got folded up like an accordion. That was one of the more kind of debilitating hits that I've seen in a while, especially to a star quarterback like that. But like you said, he showed his toughness whenever he was able to get up. And that he didn't sleep great that night. He woke up with a little bit of pain, but I'm with you. I don't think he's going to be able to as mobile as this game as he has been in previous games, just based off the fact that his ribs are still going to be hurting. Because look, man, it's tough with rib injuries because you never really know how it's going to affect the quarterback. And I mean, I'm sure for mobile quarterbacks like Justin, he likes to run around and scramble, and that's going to be tough on him. I think he's going to be more like you said, like you said, Coach. He's going to be more throwing into the flats, throwing kind of a short passes. He's not going to be able to scramble as much. He is going to get some eventually, I know, just because he's going to have that adrenaline pumping the whole game. But it's not going to be as much as we've seen in the past from him. But that's still real dangerous because, like you said, he's still learning. He's still a young kid, and that was his one knock, like you said, is he was trying to extend plays too much. And now that he's getting a little bit more comfortable with just like, look, I can throw the ball out of bounds. I can get another play on this and be fine. That's the scary part, especially coming into a national championship game. And this is I like to equate this kind of like a chess match. It's going to be, the old seasoned veteran with Nick Saban there who's done this time and time again. I think this is his 14th or 15th year there. And then you got the young up-and-coming head coach at Ohio State who's getting a lot of good looks from different schools from the NFL now with Ryan Day. So this is going to be a real interesting matchup between, the seasoned veteran with Nick Saban and the young up-and-coming starter, with Ryan Day. So it's going to be interesting to see just how how they match up against each other in this game. I'm looking forward to it. So another question for you, Coach. Who for each team, who is one player that you think is kind of like a sleeper pick? Do you think might have a breakout game? Who's one for Alabama? Who do you have for Ohio State?
Oh, wow. I'm glad you asked that question. I think that, and I don't really know if we could call it a breakout game, but I am really, because the Bama's defense has been extremely steady in their aggressiveness of late. A lot of deep throws have been going Job's way. People throwing deep on him all the time. Daniel Wright has had some balls thrown deep on him a lot. People are trying to test those guys because they don't want to deal with Patrick Surtain. Yeah. And I mean, Patrick has had a sensational year, and he's defended 11 passes this year. And in his career at Bama, he's only had 18. He's been targeted 43 times just in this year. And he's had only given up 18 completions. And the fascinating part about what Surtain is doing is he's in a groove that he's starting to take away half of the field in coverage, playing against some of the best receivers that he's had to line up against every weekend. So I really believe that Patrick Surtain is going to have a sensational game because we're going to have somebody to match up on these two receivers that they have for Ohio State that are pretty good. One dark horse, I will say watch the game that Daniel Wright and Malachi Moore have to play, because somebody is going to have to match up with those tight ends. Moore, of course, if he's healthy enough to give it a great go at it, which you know he will. It's a national championship game, but he has been fluid the whole season as a true freshman coming in August and earning a starting position. So look for him to have an integral part of what's going to happen in that game as far as throwing the ball. As far as running the ball, I just believe that Dylan Moses is finally he's got his legs up under him and he's flying around. And now you see him in coverage, which when he's in coverage and he's able to move fluid enough to cover those backs, that head-to-head matchup against Trey Sermons is going to be an essential thing to look at. On the offensive side of the ball, here's the crazy part about it. Okay, the rumors are that Jalen Waddle is going to play. Okay, let's go ahead and agree on this now, Ohio State fans. Nobody is going to cover Devontae Smith. Okay, let's just get that out your mind. It's not going to happen. The weakest part of Ohio State is their secondary. Shaun Wade is All-American, but to me, it's the fascinating thing about him being an All-American. His forte is not being press cover man guy. He is a cover three, that Seattle Seahawks defense, cover three, the Sherman guy when he was with the Seattle Seahawks, League Boom. He's that kind of corner, but he's no match for Devontae Smith. Okay, and what's going to happen is he's going to get exposed because he doesn't play press man. He plays what we call mirror man. Okay, which is mirror. Mirror means you're going to just mirror that person and follow them. That's cute. Looks great on all the drill tapes when the the drill coaches teach you how to mirror somebody. But listen, the old school guys say press man means you have to touch them, Logan. That means touch them. Okay, take these hands and touch that receiver. Okay, and don't be afraid about it and have some tough intentions when you do it. So Pete Golden is going to jump in that and allow Patrick Surtain to do it. But I don't think Shaun Wade is going to give Ohio State what they need to be able to cover Devontae Smith. Now, if Jalen Waddle plays, now what are we talking about? So here's my key to the game. Watch Mechie. Watch him be the dark horse, unsung hero on the offensive side of the ball for Bama. Watch what he does because they're going to rush us pretty well. Okay, they are good. That front four, that front seven, for Ohio State is good. I'll take nothing away from them. They do a great job of covering, and their delay blitzes are sensational. Trevor Lawrence was on his butt the whole second half. Okay, but here's the Achilles heel for Ohio State. Michael Penix from Indiana, had almost 500 yards passing against him, 5 touchdowns. Okay, Ty Freifogel, had 7 catches, 231 yards, 3 touchdowns. We're talking about Ty Freifogel. Okay, Devontae Smith should win the Heisman. Is that tomorrow? Maybe, I don't know when they announce it, but
yeah, I think Tuesday.
Nothing against Freifogel, but you're playing Devontae Smith next Monday. If Freifogel and Michael Penix can do that, what they did to that secondary. And they only lost 42 to 35, and they lost because they had 4 turnovers, and Penix threw 1 interception that Shaun Wade took for a pick 6. You take that away and a couple of those other turnovers, who knows? Indiana shows that there's some kryptonite in that secondary. So guess what? Guess what the Crimson Tide is going to do? They're going to attack it, and they're going to attack it all night. It does not matter how many points they score. Okay, they average over 43 points. We average over 48 points. It's going to be a barn burner somehow, some way. Physical game. They're going to have to take some bodies off the field. And when it's all said and done, hide the women and children because they're going to be body parts flying around. Defense of Ohio State is awesome. I give them much credit. I am thoroughly impressed even more with Justin Fields on what he does as a football player, his toughness, his grit, and his ability to succeed in adversity. And those are the things that even we like down at Tuscaloosa. So we're going to really enjoy watching this game. So those are some of the dark horses I want to throw at, because when it's all said and done, Travis Etienne had only 32 yards rushing on 10 carries. against that massive defense last week. So we're going to have a head knocker going on.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's going to be an offensive showdown, I think, between these two. Like you said, you just brought up the points per games there, and they were in the 40s for each of them. So it's going to be, if you like offense, tune into this one. If you enjoy a nice defensive battle, this probably isn't the one for you. But hey, I'm looking forward to this game. It's the game of the century is what we've been looking forward to since the start of the season, way back when. And I just want to get your final thoughts, your final predictions. I think I already know the team you got in mind. But if you got a score, if you got anything like that, go ahead and give it out there to the fans. What's your final thoughts on this game, Coach Jones?
Okay, here's the thing. Offensively, when we have the football, we're going to have to be able to have our running game, sound running game, but it doesn't need to be the power game. It needs to be out of some spread formations so you can spread the defense out a little bit, get our massive linemen to be able to climb those linebackers and get those linebackers in six men in the box, and while we have 7 in the box. Okay, and then we be able to run that ball with Najee Harris. Let's not go side to side on them because the Buckeyes are very fast. So we have to establish a sound run game. Do what we do as far as passing the football. Get the ball out your hands because there's 2 really good kids coming off that edge for Ohio State that we don't want them touching Mac Jones. Okay, so on the defense side of the ball, we must be able to contain Justin Fields and Trey Sermons. Don't worry about those receivers. Let's stay in cover 3. Let's stay deep. Keep everything in front of us. Let our athletes compete against their athletes. When it's all said and done, we have too many scorers on the offense side of the ball. They're not going to be able to play with us. I think the score is going to be in the 40s for us. I think we're going to be right around 48 points. I think they're going to be right around 28 points. Or maybe they might hit 30. I doubt it. It's not going to happen, especially if we wear them down. So I'm going to give you a final score, 48-28. Okay. Roll, Tide, roll.
Hey, Coach Jones, I think I'm going to agree with you. I'll give my predictions on this game real quick. I am with you. I do think Alabama will get the W in this one. If I had to go with the score, I got Alabama getting around 36 to 38 points in the high 30s. I don't think we're going to crack the 40s yet, but I do think they'll get pretty close. And if I had to go with Ohio State score, I'll keep it pretty close. I'll have them getting 28. So that's my final prediction for this game. But it's going to be a great game next week. I know we're all looking forward to it here on the network. We're going to be tuning in, watching that game that we've all been looking forward to between the 2 powerhouses of college football. I think we pretty much all knew Alabama was going to be here. I know you know that. I know before the season you already had them locked in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But Ohio State was a little bit of a sleeper pick for a lot of people, especially like you said, only played in those few amount of games that you count on 2 hands. That they had their doubters and they were able to silence them. I think last week against
I was one of them.
Big win. I'm with you. I was with you. I didn't think they would put up nearly 50 points against a great team like they did with Clemson, but they proved me wrong. Just because the amount of games played doesn't necessarily translate to the amount of talent that they have. And man, they got a lot of good players both on the offensive as well as the defensive side of the ball for that Buckeyes program. And we all know what Alabama can do. We know that they've got Heisman finalists over on that squad. They've got a killer defense. And I'm ready to see how this one's going to play out. I'm willing to see who's going to get hot, who's going to have a bad game. And I know we're all going to be ready to talk about this one again, man. This is going to be up for debate for a long time about this one game.
Well, let me leave this last thought with you and the fans that are listening. One thing to keep in mind, Ohio State played on an emotional high last week. And as a head coach, to be able to get your team has been building, Coach Day put that sign up at the beginning of the offseason training that scored 29-23. He put a visual up that those kids kept that in their mind the whole season. That was their why to work hard, blood, sweat, and tears to prepare themselves to be the best player they can be, to be successful. They wanted Clemson back, and they got Clemson, and they took Clemson out, and that took a lot of emotional energy and drive to sustain for a whole game. Sports fans, I'm here to tell you, down in Tuscaloosa, Coach Saban says, play with emotion, but don't be emotional. 48-30. Bama wins.
Hey, You can't say it much better than that, Coach Jones. Got the face mask back on, I see. Well, hey, for everyone watching us live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch, thank you all for tuning into the show so much. Be sure to like, comment, and share it to all your Facebook groups that you're talking about this game. And be sure to let them know that 100 Yards of Football sent you over there. For everyone on the Believe Podcast Network listening to us on Spotify and Apple, as well as Stitcher and any other type of podcast experience that you enjoy listening to, whether it be in your car, at work, we thank you guys so much for all the downloads over there as well. And for my amazing guest, Kevin the Bull Jones, I appreciate you having me on, Kevin. It's always a blast having you on the show, especially talking about the Crimson Tide, your team. And hey, I'm your host, Logan Landers. This has been 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. We'll be talking to you guys a little bit later on. See you guys. Enjoy the game.
Roll Tide, roll.